I stared at the bottle of Lexapro in my hand, and the plan that had been simmering in the back of my mind for weeks suddenly crystallized into something sharp and real. The symposium was tomorrow. Chloe had already taken the bait, copied the poison file, and was probably practicing her speech in front of her bathroom mirror right now, rehearsing the words that would steal my life's work. I pocketed the pills and walked out of the lab, my footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. The thing about being reborn is that you remember everything. Not just the big moments. The award ceremony where Chloe accepted my prize, the article in the university paper that credited her as the genius behind EOS, the look on my father's face when he told me I should be happy for my sister. I remember the small things too. The way Chloe would casually mention my anxiety issues to colleagues. The time she accidentally deleted a month's worth of my data and I had to stay up for 72 hours straight to reconstruct it. The way she'd touch my shoulder and say, "Poor Lucy," in that voice that made me feel like a wounded bird. She was already doing it again. I'd seen her on the phone in the hallway yesterday, her voice dropping low when she said my name. "Lucy's just struggling a bit with the pressure. You know how she gets." She was planting seeds, cultivating a narrative. By the time she stood on that stage tomorrow, I would already be the fragile, unreliable sister who needed to be protected from herself. The perfect foil. The convenient scapegoat. I drove home with the windows down, letting the summer air dry the sweat on my palms. The house was quiet when I walked in. Patricia was in the kitchen, pretending to cook dinner while actually scrolling through Instagram on her phone. She looked up when I entered, her smile fixed and brittle as porcelain. "Lucy, darling, you're back earlier than I expected. I thought you were going to stay at the lab until late." "I changed my mind," I said, heading for the stairs. "Tired." "Tired," she set down her phone, her eyes narrowing with the practiced concern of a woman who had spent years perfecting the art of performative mothering. "You've been working so hard, sweetheart. Maybe you should take a break. Chloe was just telling me that you've been looking exhausted. She's so worried about you." Of course she was. Chloe was always worried. It was her favorite role, the concerned sister hovering over her troubled step-sibling. It made her look generous and caring while simultaneously reminding everyone that I was a project, a problem to be managed. "I'm fine," I said, my voice flat. "Just fine." I climbed the stairs to my room and closed the door behind me. The room was exactly as I'd left it this morning, but something felt different. I walked to my desk and opened the top drawer. My lab notebook was still there, exactly where I'd placed it. But the sticky note I'd left on the inside cover, a small reminder about a reagent order, was gone. Chloe had been in here. While I was at the library, while I was driving home, she'd slipped into my room and gone through my things. She was covering her tracks, making sure I didn't have any evidence that she'd copied my files. I smiled. She had no idea about the encrypted backups. She had no idea about the monitoring software. She was so confident in her own cunning that she couldn't imagine anyone being smarter than her. That arrogance was going to be her undoing. That my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. "Hey sis. Just wanted to check in. You seemed a little down today. Everything okay? I'm here if you want to talk." Red heart. I stared at the screen. The little heart emoji. The sisterly concern. She was so good at this. She'd been practicing for years, honing her skills at emotional manipulation until they were as polished as her manicured nails. And I'd fallen for it every single time. I'd told her my secrets. I'd confided my fears. I'd handed her the knife and turned my back. Not anymore did I type back. Thanks, Chloe.
I'm fine.
Just thinking about the symposium tomorrow. A little nervous, I guess. I watched the 3 dots disappear again. She was figuring out how to respond. How to twist my anxiety into another reason why I wasn't capable. Another brick in the wall she was building around me. Don't be nervous. You'll be great. And even if something goes wrong, we're family. That's what matters. Red heart, weary family. The phrase she'd used to justify every betrayal, every theft, every time she'd taken something that was mine, and smiled while doing it. We're family. It was her get-out-of-jail-free card. Her permission slip for anything and everything. I didn't respond. I set my phone down and opened my laptop. There was still work to do. The symposium started at 9 the next morning. I woke up at 6 and spent an hour getting ready. Not dressing up, I wanted to look like I always did. Jeans. A faded t-shirt. My hair in its usual messy ponytail. The struggling graduate student, too consumed by her work to worry about appearances. Chloe, by contrast, would be immaculate. She'd practiced for this for weeks. I arrived at the hotel ballroom just after the doors opened. The room was modest, maybe 200 seats, a small stage, a few poster displays in the back. But it was filled with the right people. Dr. Eris and his research team, department heads from the university, investors who had been following the EOS project with growing interest. The room hummed with the quiet buzz of academic networking. I found a seat in the back, near the exit, a place where I could watch without being seen. The first few speakers were forgettable, routine presentations about routine research. I kept my eyes on the door, waiting for Chloe to make her entrance. She arrived 20 minutes into the first session. She was wearing a charcoal gray pantsuit that I'd never seen before, its lines sharp and expensive. Her hair was down, styled into glossy waves that caught the light. She walked with the easy confidence of someone who knew she was the most interesting person in the room. I saw several heads turn as she passed. She didn't see me. She walked straight to the front of the room, to the section reserved for Dr. Eris and his senior researchers. I watched her lean down and whisper something to Dr. Eris. He nodded, his expression serious. She handed him a USB drive. The poison file. I felt a surge of cold satisfaction course through my veins that the next speaker was finishing up. Then it was time for Dr. Eris's presentation. He stood and walked to the podium, adjusting the microphone with the ease of a man who'd done this 100 times.
Good morning, he began.
Thank you all for being here. As many of you know, our research team has been working on a groundbreaking treatment for a rare neurodegenerative disease. We've codenamed the project EOS, and I'm pleased to say that we've made significant progress. He clicked a button on his laptop, and the screen behind him lit up with a familiar diagram. My diagram. The protein folding sequence I'd spent months perfecting. But it was the old version. The one I'd left in the dummy file. The flawed version. I saw him gesture toward it with a proud sweep of his hand. Our initial data is extremely promising, he continued. But I want to emphasize that this project wouldn't be where it is today without the work of one of my researchers. A brilliant young woman who has been the driving force behind much of our progress. He paused. I saw Chloe straighten in her seat, a small, controlled smile on her face. She was waiting for her cue. Chloe Mitchell, would you please come up here? She rose with practiced grace. The room applauded as she walked to the podium. She was radiant, confident. She reached the podium and placed her hands on it, leaning forward with the casual intimacy of someone who owned the room. Thank you, Dr. Eris, she said. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm grateful to everyone who's supported this work. Her eyes flickered across the room, never landing on me. EOS has been a passion project for me. I've devoted countless hours to it, late nights in the lab, weekends when I should have been taking time off. But it's all been worth it. She was good. I had to admit it. She was so good. She looked like the hero of her own story, a young woman on the verge of changing the world. And in the original timeline, she'd gotten away with it. She'd stolen my work, my credit, my future, and I'd been too broken to fight back. But this time was different. This treatment has the potential to change lives, Chloe continued. And I'm so excited to share the data with you today. She clicked on a file on the podium computer. The same file I'd so carefully poisoned. The first part of her presentation was flawless. The early data matched the real thing. The protein folding sequence seemed correct. I watched the investors nodding, Dr. Eris smiling. Chloe was flying high, then she reached the final stage. This was where the poison lay. A deliberately introduced error in the protein folding sequence. Under certain conditions that Chloe couldn't possibly know to avoid, the treatment would fail catastrophically. The protein structure would collapse. The cell models would die. And if it were ever tested on a live subject, the results would be fatal. Chloe clicked to the next slide. And here we see the final optimized sequence. This is where everything comes together. The treatment is stable, effective, and ready for the next phase of testing. Her voice was triumphant. I could see the pride radiating from her, the absolute certainty that she'd won. Then the computer beeped. A small warning box appeared on the screen. Chloe's smile flickered. "Just a minor glitch," she said. Clicking the mouse, the warning box didn't disappear. A new one appeared, larger and more urgent. Asterisk critical error, protein fold deviation in sequence 4.3. Data inconsistency detected. Asterisk. The room fell silent. I saw Dr. Eris frown, his brow creasing. Chloe's smile had vanished, replaced by a look of confusion. "I don't understand," she said, her voice losing its confident edge. "This should be..." She clicked again. Another warning box. This one was red. Asterisk fatal. Sequence collapse imminent. Model unreliable. Asterisk the screen went black for a moment, then the data reappeared, but it was fragmented, garbled. The beautiful, perfect model I'd created was now a mess of error codes and incomplete sequences. Chloe stared at the screen, her mouth slightly open. The audience was murmuring now. I saw Dr. Eris stand abruptly, his face pale. "Dr. Mitchell," he said, his voice tight with forced calm. "What's going on? I don't know," she stammered. "This has never happened before. I tested this model extensively. It was perfect." It was. She looked around the room, her eyes wild. And then she saw me. Her face transformed, a mask of panic and dawning horror. "Lucy," she breathed. "Lucy did this. She must have tampered with my files. She's been jealous of my work. She's unstable," the doctor said. I stood up slowly. "It was time, Dr. Eris," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I think I can explain." Chloe's head snapped toward me. "Stay out of this, Lucy. This doesn't concern you." "Actually," I said, walking toward the front of the room, "it concerns me very much. Because I'm the one who created the EOS model. I'm the one who spent years working on it. And Chloe copied my files. She stole my research, and she tried to present it as her own." Chloe laughed, a high, brittle sound. "This is ridiculous. Everyone knows Lucy has mental health issues. She's unstable. She's been struggling for years. The stress of this project has clearly..." "I have proof." I pulled out my phone and walked to the podium, holding it up so the screen was visible to Dr. Eris and the front row. "I set up a monitoring system on my lab computer weeks ago. It captured everything. Every time Chloe accessed my files. Every time she copied them. The timestamps. The keystrokes. The photographs she took of my screen." Chloe's face went white. That's impossible." "Is it?" I scrolled through the data on my phone. "I also have email records. Drafts. A complete digital trail showing my work on the EOS project from the beginning. I can prove that every single piece of data in that model is mine." "She's lying," Chloe said, her voice cracking. "She's lying, and she's mentally ill. You can't listen to her." Dr. Eris looked between us, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Chloe. "I want to see your lab notebooks, Dr. Mitchell. Your original data. Your notes from the early stages of the project." Chloe's mouth opened and closed. She didn't have any lab notebooks. She didn't have any original data. She'd never done any of the work. "They're at home," she managed. "Email them to me," Dr. Eris said coldly. "Right now." Chloe's face crumpled. She turned to me, her expression a mixture of fury and fear. "You did this," she hissed. "You set me up. You gave me that file. You knew it was flawed." "I gave you nothing," I said. "You took. You stole. You've been doing it for years. Taking things that don't belong to you and pretending they're yours. But this time, I made sure there were consequences." The room was completely silent now. I could feel every person's gaze fixed on us. I looked at Chloe, and I felt nothing. No pity. No sisterly tenderness. I'd given her those emotions in my first life, and they'd been wasted on her. She'd used them as tools against me. "Chloe," I said, my voice quiet enough that only she and Dr. Eris could hear. You wanted to be a scientist. You wanted to stand on a stage and take credit for something you didn't create. Well, congratulations. You got your stage. Now everyone's going to remember you as the fraud that you are. She took a step back, her eyes glistening with tears. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, I think, Dr. Eris said, his voice carrying through the silent room, that we need to have a private conversation. Chloe, Lucy, please follow me to the back room. We walked in silence through the murmuring crowd. Behind us, the investors were whispering. The researchers were exchanging shocked glances. Chloe Mitchell's brilliant career had just crumbled in public view. The story would spread through every academic department, every lab, every funding board in the country. Down the back room, Dr. Eris closed the door and turned to face us. His expression was grim. I want to see the evidence, Lucy. All of it. Of course, I said, pulling out my laptop. I spent the next hour showing him everything. The encrypted backups, the timestamps, the monitoring logs, the emails Chloe had sent herself from my lab computer, the photographs she'd taken of my screen. The digital trail was immaculate, a perfect chain of evidence leading directly to her. Chloe sat in the corner, silent and pale. She'd stopped denying it. She knew it was over. Chloe, Dr. Eris said finally, turning to her, I don't think I need to explain how serious this is. Plagiarism. Theft of intellectual property.
Fraud.
You could be expelled from the university. You could face criminal charges. And I can promise you that you will never work in this field again. Chloe started crying. Real tears this time. Ugly and raw. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean. I just wanted. Lucy, please, you have to believe me. I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted to be important. I just wanted people to notice me. I looked at her, and I remembered how I'd felt the first time I'd seen her face on the cover of a university magazine. The pride. The jealousy. The way I'd looked at myself in the mirror and wondered what I'd done wrong. How I'd failed. Why I wasn't good enough. Chloe, I said, my voice quiet. You wanted to be noticed. You wanted to be important. I understand that. I even sympathize with it. But you decided to get there by destroying me. You decided to erase me from my own life's work. And you would have done it. You would have let me disappear. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I didn't think you'd find out. I didn't think it mattered. That's the problem, I said. You didn't think it mattered. I closed my laptop and stood up. Dr. Eris, I'm happy to provide any additional documentation you need. I can send you the encrypted files and the full monitoring logs. I also have a lawyer who's been waiting for me to call. I think it's time I made that call. Chloe's eyes widened. A lawyer? You stole from me, I said. You tried to ruin my life. What did you expect? That I'd just let it go, that I'd forgive you because we're family? I was going to share the credit, she said desperately. I was going to include you. You were going to make me your assistant, I said. Your research assistant. The one who did the grunt work while you got the credit. That was always your plan. She had nothing to say to that. Because she knew it was true, did I walk to the door. I'll be in touch, Dr. Eris. And Chloe. I turned back to look at her. The next time you think about taking something that belongs to someone else, maybe you'll remember today. Maybe you'll remember what it cost you. I walked out of the room, down the hallway, and into the bright morning sun. The air was warm and clean. I breathed it in, feeling the tight knot of anxiety that had lived in my chest for years begin to dissolve. It was over. Chloe's career was over. My work was safe. And the future that had been stolen from me, that future was mine again. But as I walked to my car, I felt something else too. A quiet, hollow ache in my chest. I'd won. But winning had cost me something too. It had cost me the illusion of family. The fairy tale that somewhere, underneath all the manipulations and betrayals, Chloe loved me. That my parents cared. That I was part of something bigger than myself. That was gone now. And I wasn't sure if I was okay with that. Or if I'd ever be okay with it again. That I got in my car and started the engine. I had phone calls to make. A lawyer to contact. A life to rebuild. But for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I wanted. And I knew exactly how to get it. The game was over, but another one was just beginning. The phone call to my lawyer, Margaret Chen, was the first step in a process I'd been planning for weeks. She answered on the second ring, her voice crisp and professional even at 9 in the morning. "Lucy, I was wondering when you'd call." "I have everything ready," I said. "The evidence is documented. The digital trail is complete. I can send you the files within the hour."
Good.
"I've already drafted the cease and desist letters and the preliminary filings for intellectual property theft. We'll need to move quickly before she has a chance to destroy any additional evidence." "She won't," I said. "She's in shock. She doesn't know what to do." "Then we strike now. I'll have my assistant start the paperwork. You focus on securing your data and making sure no one else can access it." I hung up and sat in my car for a long moment, staring at the hotel where Chloe's career had just imploded. The parking lot was mostly empty, the symposium still going on inside. I could imagine the chaos. Investors demanding answers, Dr. Eris trying to salvage his reputation, Chloe's breakdown echoing through the back rooms. None of it concerned me anymore. I'd done what I came to do, but as I drove away, a strange numbness settled over me. I'd spent years imagining this moment, the confrontation, the exposure, the vindication. I'd pictured Chloe's face when she realized she'd been caught. I'd pictured my father's shock, Patricia's horror, the slow dawning of understanding in their eyes. I'd pictured the validation, the justice, the moment when everyone finally saw the truth. Now that it was happening, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like waking up from a dream, like the world had tilted slightly off its axis, and I was still trying to find my balance as I drove home on autopilot. The house was quiet when I walked in. Patricia was probably at her yoga class, Richard at his office. I climbed the stairs to my room and locked the door behind me. Then I sat on my bed and stared at the wall for what felt like hours. My phone buzzed. "Chloe, please don't do this. We can talk. We can work something out. I'll give you credit. I'll tell everyone it was your work. Just please don't ruin my life. I stared at the message. She was pleading now, her carefully constructed confidence crumbling. But I knew her too well to be fooled. This wasn't remorse. This was damage control. She was trying to negotiate, to buy time, to find a way to spin this in her favor. You had years to work something out. I typed back. You chose not to. I set my phone down and walked to my desk. The lab notebook was still there, the one I'd used during my senior year. I opened it to the first page, where I'd written my name in careful, blocky letters. Lucy Chen. Molecular Biogenetics. Project EOS. The pages that followed were a record of obsession, my handwriting cramped and urgent, diagrams scrawled in the margins, equations crossed out and rewritten, the slow, painful process of discovery. I'd poured myself into these pages. I'd given everything I had to this project. And Chloe had tried to take it all with a smile and a few carefully chosen words. I turned to the back of the notebook, where I'd started keeping a different kind of record after my rebirth. A log of Chloe's activities. The dates and times she'd accessed my files. The conversations she'd had about me in the lab. The things she'd said to Patricia, to Richard, to anyone who would listen. July 14th. Chloe entered my room while I was at the library. Took the sticky note from my lab notebook. Probably looking for more evidence to destroy. July 15th. Chloe called Dr. Eris from the hallway outside the lab. Said I was struggling with the pressure and maybe not as involved as she should be. July 16th. Chloe asked me about my anxiety medication. Trying to build a case for my instability. I closed the notebook and set it aside. I'd been so careful, so meticulous. I documented every single step of Chloe's betrayal. But as I looked at the evidence spread out before me, I realized something that made my stomach clench. I hadn't just documented Chloe's actions. I'd set her up. I'd handed her the poison file. I'd created the conditions for her downfall. I'd known exactly what she would do, and I'd made sure that doing it would destroy her. Was that justice, or was it just revenge dressed up in a lab coat? I didn't have time to answer that question. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father, Lucy. His voice was tight, strained. I just got a call from Dr. Eris. He said something about Chloe and a stolen file. What happened? I took a breath. Dad, I need you to sit down. There are some things you need to know. I'm at my office, Lucy. I'm sitting down. Just tell me what's going on. I told him. All of it. The years of Chloe taking credit for my work. The way she'd undermined me to Patricia and to the researchers. The files she'd copied from my computer. The symposium. The data collapse. The evidence. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Lucy, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure? Chloe wouldn't, she's never. Dad, I have proof. Emails. Photographs. A complete digital trail. She stole from me. She was going to present my work as her own. She was going to let me disappear. He was silent again. I could hear his breathing, heavy and uneven. I don't know what to say, he said eventually. I don't. We've always been so proud of Chloe. She's always been so perfect, I said, the word bitter on my tongue.
Yeah,
I know. She's always been perfect. And I've always been the difficult one. The problem child. The one who needed to be managed. Lucy, that's not. It is, I said. It's exactly that. And I've let it go for years because I wanted you to love me. Because I wanted to be part of this family. But I'm done. I'm done letting her take things from me. I'm done being erased. Nobody's trying to erase you, he said, but his voice was uncertain. He knew it wasn't true. Dad, I'm going to send you the evidence. All of it. I want you to read it. I want you to understand what she did. And when you've read it, I need you to decide whether you're going to support me or whether you're going to pretend none of this happened. Because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending we're a family when we're not. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to my father like that before. I'd never demanded anything from him. I'd spent my whole life trying to be good enough, trying to earn his approval, trying to prove that I was worth loving, and it had never worked. Not once did I sat on my bed, staring at the phone in my hands. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. I felt like I'd run a marathon, only to realize that the finish line was just the start of another race. My phone buzzed again. Patricia this time. I let it ring. Then the house phone started ringing. Then Patricia's voice echoed up the stairs, calling my name. Lucy. Lucy, I need to talk to you. Right now. I ignored her. I could hear her footsteps on the stairs, her voice growing more frantic. She knocked on my door, then started pounding. Lucy, open this door. Chloe just called me. She's hysterical. What did you do to her? I opened the door. Patricia stood there, red-faced and furious. Her careful composure had cracked, revealing something uglier underneath. What did you do? She repeated. Chloe's crying. She said you accused her of stealing your work. She said you embarrassed her in front of everyone. She said you've been planning this for weeks. I looked at her, and I felt something shift inside me. The fear I'd always felt around her. The desperate need for her approval. The anxious hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd see me as her daughter. It was gone. Replaced by something colder. Something harder. She stole from me. I said. She copied my files. She was going to present my research as her own. I have proof. I have everything. Patricia's eyes narrowed. You have proof? What kind of proof? Emails. Photographs. Monitoring logs. A complete digital record of everything she did. For a moment, something flickered in Patricia's eyes. Doubt, guilt. It was gone before I could name it. Chloe wouldn't do that, she said. She doesn't have to steal. She's brilliant. She's worked hard for everything she's achieved. Her achievements are mostly mine, I said. And you know it. You've always known it. You just didn't care because she was the daughter you wanted. The one who fit in. The one who made you look good. Patricia's face went pale. That is not. It is, I said. You've been pretending for years. Pretending I'm part of this family. Pretending you love me. Pretending Chloe's accomplishments are her own. And I let you. I let you because I wanted to believe the lie. But I'm done. I walked past her, down the stairs, out the front door. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be in that house anymore, that I ended up at a coffee shop near the university. A small, quiet place where I'd spent countless hours during my senior year, nursing a single latte while I worked on my data. The barista, a young woman named Maya, recognized me and smiled. "Lucy, haven't seen you in forever." "The usual, yeah," I said. "Thanks, Maya." I took my latte to a table in the corner and sat down. My phone was buzzing nonstop. Patricia, Richard, Chloe, Dr. Eris. I turned it off and set it face down on the table. For the first time in weeks, I was alone. Truly alone. No monitoring. No strategizing. No planning. Just me and my thoughts. I thought about the years I'd spent trying to earn my family's love. The desperate scramble for approval that had defined my childhood. The way I'd bent myself into shapes I didn't recognize, trying to fit into a family that had never really wanted me. And then I thought about what I'd done. I'd planned Chloe's downfall with the precision of a surgeon. I'd handed her the rope and watched her hang herself. I'd exposed her in front of everyone who mattered, destroyed her career, and set the stage for her complete humiliation. Was I proud of that? I didn't know. I didn't know if I was proud or ashamed or just emptied. My phone buzzed again. I'd forgotten I'd turned it on. This time it was a text from an unknown number. Miss Chin, this is Dr. Eris. I need to speak with you urgently. Please call me back. Asterisk. I stared at the message. Dr. Eris had never texted me before. He'd always called my lab phone or emailed me at my university address. This was different. This was personal. That I called him back. Dr. Eris, Lucy. Thank you for calling. I've been reviewing the evidence you sent me. The timestamps, the emails, the monitoring logs. It's comprehensive. Thank you. I said, I want you to understand that Chloe's actions don't reflect on you. Your work is exceptional. The EOS project is remarkable. And it's clear that you're the one who did the work. I felt a small, fragile warmth bloom in my chest. Thank you. I said again. I want to offer you something, he said. I'm going to recommend that you take over as the lead researcher on EOS. You'll have full control of the project, full credit for the work, and my full support. We'll issue a public correction, and I'll make sure everyone knows that the work was yours. I closed my eyes. This was what I'd wanted. This was what I'd been fighting for. The recognition, the validation, the proof that I mattered. Thank you, I said. That means everything. Lucy, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Did you know that the file was flawed? Did you know that the data would collapse? The question hung in the air between us. I could have lied. I could have pretended that it was just a coincidence, a technical glitch, a tragic accident, but I didn't. Yes, I said. I knew. I planted a flawed file in my system. I knew that if Chloe copied it and tried to present it as her own, it would crash. I knew exactly what would happen. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Why, he asked finally, because I needed her to show her hand. I needed the world to see what she did. She'd been stealing from me for years, erasing me from my own work. And I knew that if I just accused her, people wouldn't believe me. They'd think I was jealous, unstable, vindictive. I needed to let her destroy herself. I waited for his judgment. I expected outrage. Disappointment. The cold dismissal of someone who'd lost respect for me. Instead, he laughed. A short, surprised laugh. You're brilliant, Lucy, he said. And terrifying. But mostly brilliant. I'm sorry for what she did to you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. And I'm going to make sure that you get everything you deserve. He hung up. I sat there, stunned. I'd just told my boss that I deliberately sabotaged my own work to frame my sister. And his response was to laugh and promise me everything I deserve. Maybe the world wasn't as simple as I'd thought. Maybe justice and revenge weren't as far apart as I'd believed. I finished my latte and walked back to my car. The sun was high now, the afternoon warm and bright. I felt lighter than I had in months. Not happy, exactly, but lighter. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Chloe. Please, Lucy. I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want. I stared at the screen. What did I want? I'd been so focused on destroying her that I'd never stopped to think about what came next. I typed back. Asterisk, I want you to disappear. I want you to leave me alone. I want you to stop pretending you're a scientist and start figuring out who you really are. Asterisk. I pressed send and watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again.
She didn't respond.
She couldn't. There was nothing left to say. The next few weeks were chaos. Chloe was expelled from the university. The formal investigation concluded that she had engaged in academic misconduct of the highest order. Her name was removed from all published papers, and a retraction was issued for a minor paper she'd actually co-authored, though I'd done most of the work there too. She was blacklisted from every research institution in the country. Her career was over. Patricia tried to call me several times. I didn't answer. Richard sent me a long email full of carefully chosen words and half apologies. Asterisk, I never knew it was this bad. I should have seen the signs.
I'm sorry.
Please come home so we can talk. Asterisk, I read the email 3 times. Then I deleted it. Home. That word didn't mean what it used to. I didn't know if it ever would again. I threw myself into my work. The EOS project consumed me completely. I slept in the lab, ate at my desk, lived for the rhythm of experiments and data analysis. Dr. Aris was true to his word. He gave me full control of the project, full credit, and a salary increase that made my head spin. But the thing that made my heart race was the email from the university's patent office.
My name was on the patents.
Not Chloe's. Not anyone else's.
Mine.
The work I'd done was finally legally mine. I took the patent documents and framed them. The frame was simple, cheap, and I hung it on the wall of my lab. Every time I looked at it, I felt a small surge of triumph. It was a reminder that no matter what happened, no matter how many people tried to steal from me, I'd won. But sometimes, late at night, when the lab was empty and the only sound was the quiet hum of the refrigerated centrifuges, I felt something else. A loneliness that cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I'd cut my family out of my life. I'd exposed my sister as a fraud. I'd destroyed her career and her reputation. And I'd done it with a cold, calculating precision that scared me sometimes. Was I a good person? I didn't know. I didn't know if good and bad even applied anymore. I'd done what I had to do to survive. That was all I could say for myself. A month after the symposium, I was in the lab late at night. The building was empty, the hallways dark and silent. I was running a final test on the EOS model, the real one, the one I'd been working on since my rebirth. It was perfect. The data was clean. The protein structure was stable. I was so focused on my work that I didn't hear the footsteps until they were at the door. Lucy. I looked up. Chloe was standing in the doorway. She looked different.
Thinner.
Hollow-eyed. Her clothes were rumpled and cheap. She wasn't wearing designer anything anymore. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. I didn't get up. I didn't speak. I just waited. I needed to see you, she said. I needed to tell you something. Say it, I said. Then leave. She walked into the lab, her steps hesitant. She kept her hands in her pockets, her shoulders hunched. I'm sorry, she said. I don't know if that matters. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I'm sorry. I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you. She was apologizing. After everything. After years of taking from me. After trying to erase me. After stealing my work and pretending it was hers. I felt nothing. You knew exactly what you were doing, I said. You just didn't care. She shook her head.
No.
Yes, I knew. But I didn't know, I didn't understand what it felt like to be on the other side. To be the one who's invisible. To be the one who works and never gets the credit. I didn't understand. Now you do. She nodded. Now I do. And it's miserable. It's the worst thing I've ever felt. I looked at her, and I felt a flicker of something. Not pity. Not forgiveness. Just recognition. I'm not going to forgive you, I said. I'm not going to pretend we're sisters. I'm not going to give you a second chance. I'm not asking for one, she said. I needed you to know that I understand now. And I'm sorry. She turned to leave. And before I could stop myself, I said, Chloe. She stopped. Turn back. You'll find something else. Something that's actually yours. You're not stupid. You're just lazy. And you're used to getting things without working for them. Find something you actually want. Something you're willing to earn. She nodded slowly. Maybe I will, she said. Maybe it's not too late. It might be, I said. But that's not my problem anymore. She left. I watched her go, her footsteps fading into the dark corridor. And then I turned back to my work. The EOS model was ready. The data was perfect. And my future was mine. I sat down at my computer and started typing. The weeks after Chloe's visit blurred into a rhythm I hadn't known I was craving. Work. Sleep. Work. Sleep. The EOS project was moving faster than I'd ever imagined possible. Without the constant drain of Chloe's presence, without the weight of her eyes on my back, without the endless scrutiny of a family that had never really seen me, I was free. Dr. Eris had been as good as his word. The public correction was issued in the form of a formal statement from the university's Research Integrity Office, and it landed like a bomb. Chloe Mitchell was named, shamed, and publicly severed from the project. The scientific community, which had been buzzing with excitement about the EOS treatment, now buzzed with a different kind of energy. Some people were furious at the deception, others were fascinated by the audacity of it. But everyone knew my name now. Lucy Chun, the real researcher, the one who had been erased and had fought her way back. The attention was overwhelming. I started receiving emails from researchers I'd never met, congratulating me on my work and asking if I'd consider collaborations. I got an invitation to speak at a conference in Boston, one of the biggest events in our field. My phone rang constantly with interview requests, some from legitimate scientific journals, others from outlets that smelled a juicy human interest story. I turned most of them down. I wasn't ready to be a public figure. I wasn't sure I ever would be. But I couldn't escape the feeling that something was shifting. The world I'd been exiled from was welcoming me back with open arms. And I didn't know how to feel about it. I was in the lab late one night, running another round of tests, when the door slid open. I expected it to be a janitor or a late-night security guard. Instead, it was my father. Richard stood in the doorway, looking older than I remembered. His hair had more gray in it. The lines around his eyes were deeper. He was still wearing his office clothes, the tie loosened at his collar, his jacket slung over his arm. He looked tired in a way that went deeper than just a long day. "Lucy," he said, "I know I'm not supposed to be here. I know you probably don't want to see me, but I need to talk to you." I set down my pipette and turned to face him. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. "How did you get in?" "Dr. Eris let me in." I convinced him I needed to see my daughter. I felt a flash of annoyance at Dr. Eris for letting him past, but I pushed it down. This was going to happen eventually. I might as well get it over with. "I have a few minutes," I said. He walked into the lab, looking around at the equipment with a kind of nervous bewilderment. I'd never brought him here before. I'd never brought any of them here. The lab was mine, my sanctuary, my fortress. Having him in it felt wrong, like an intruder in sacred space. "Your mother and I have been talking," he began. "About everything. About what happened with Chloe. About how he failed you."
I didn't respond.
"I just waited. We've been doing a lot of thinking," he continued. "Patricia especially. She's been having a hard time with all of this. She always thought she was doing the right thing, trying to create a family, trying to make everyone feel included. But she realizes now that she was prioritizing Chloe over you. That she was blind to what was happening." "Blind," I repeated, the word flat in my mouth. "Willful blindness, maybe," he said, wincing. "I don't know. We're not trying to make excuses. We need to try to make things right." I studied his face. The familiar features that I'd spent my whole life trying to please. The man who'd shown up to my science fairs but always seemed distracted. The man who'd praised Chloe's achievements with genuine enthusiasm while offering me nothing more than a distracted nod and a distant "that's nice, sweetheart." "Make things right," I said. "How?" He spread his hands helplessly. "I don't know. That's why I'm here. I'm asking you to tell me what you need from us. What we can do to prove that we love you, that we want you in our lives, that we're sorry." The words hung in the air. And something inside me cracked open, just a little. I need you to see me, I said. I need you to see me the way you see Chloe. I need you to know what I've accomplished. I need you to be proud of me. Not because you feel guilty, but because you actually understand what I've done. He nodded slowly. I can do that. I want to do that. Your mother wants to do that too, he said. She's been reading your papers. She's been researching your field. She wants to understand what you've been working on. It took her a long time to get there, but she's trying. I should have felt something. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction. But all I felt was a strange emptiness. I'd spent years wanting this, dreaming of it, imagining what it would feel like to finally have my family's approval. And now that it was being offered, it felt like too little, too late. Why now? I asked. Why didn't you do this before? Why didn't you see what was happening to me? I was drowning right in front of you, and you didn't even notice. His face crumpled. I know, Lucy. I have no excuse. I was so focused on keeping the family together, on making things smooth, that I didn't see the cracks. I didn't see how much you were hurting. I'm ashamed of myself. I truly am. I looked at him for a long moment. The man who'd given me life. The man who'd been absent in all the ways that counted. The man who was now standing in my lab, asking for forgiveness. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I'm willing to try.
To let you try.
That's all I can promise. He nodded, his eyes wet. That's more than I deserve. Probably, I said. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I'm tired of carrying this weight around. I'm tired of being angry all the time. He reached out as if to hug me, then stopped, uncertain. I made no move toward him. Just give me time, I said. That's all I need right now. I can do that, he said. Whatever you need.
He left.
I watched him walk out of the lab, his shoulders hunched, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. And I felt something I hadn't expected. A flicker of pity, maybe. Or just exhaustion. I went back to my work. The tests were running, the data streaming across my monitor. But my mind was elsewhere, spinning through the conversation, replaying the words for the first time in years. My father had seen me. Not as a problem to be managed or a complication to be dealt with. He'd seen me, and maybe that was a start. The breakthrough came on a Thursday night, 3 weeks after my father's visit. I was running a final series of simulations on the EOS model, checking and rechecking the data, when I saw something I'd missed before, a small anomaly in the protein folding sequence. Something that hadn't shown up in any of my previous tests. It wasn't a flaw, the model was still stable, still functional. But it was a sign that the treatment might be even more effective than I'd originally thought. A subtle interaction between 2 amino acid chains that I'd overlooked. A hidden synergy that could increase the treatment's efficacy by as much as 40%. I stared at the data, my heart pounding. This was huge. This was the kind of discovery that could change everything. The kind that could turn a promising treatment into a revolutionary one. I pulled up the raw data, double-checked the numbers, ran the simulation again. The results were consistent. The anomaly was real. And it meant that EOS was more than just a treatment. It was a cure. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. I should have been ecstatic. I should have been jumping up and down, calling Dr. Eris at home, waking up my entire research team. But instead, I felt a strange, quiet stillness. This was the moment I'd been working toward since I'd opened my eyes in my childhood bedroom. This was the moment that would define my career. And it was mine. All mine. No one had stolen it from me. No one had taken credit for it. I had done this by myself with my own hands and mind. I closed my laptop and walked to the window. The campus was dark, the buildings silhouetted against the sky. Somewhere out there, Chloe was figuring out her new life. Patricia was reading my papers, trying to understand what I'd achieved. Richard was practicing his apology, learning to be a better father. And I was standing in a lab, looking out at the world, knowing that everything I'd ever wanted was finally within reach. The next morning, I called Dr. Eris and told him the news. He was silent for a long moment. Are you sure? He asked. You're absolutely sure. I'm sure, I said. I've checked the data 6 times. It's real. EOS is going to work.
not just as a treatment.
As a cure. He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Lucy, I have no words. This is incredible. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. I need to tell the team, I said. I need to start working on the next phase. But I also need to be careful. If this gets out before we're ready, we could lose control of the narrative. Agreed. I'll set up a meeting for this afternoon. We'll bring in the core research team, run them through the data, and start planning the next steps. This is going to be big, Lucy. Life-changing big. I hung up and took a breath. The lab was quiet around me, the machinery humming its steady, familiar hum. And for the first time, I let myself feel it. The excitement.
The joy.
The pure, unadulterated triumph of having done something truly important. But mixed in with that joy was something else. A tiny, flickering fear. I'd spent so long fighting, so long protecting myself, that I wasn't sure I knew how to be happy. I wasn't sure I deserved it. The meeting that afternoon was electric. Dr. Eris gathered the core research team in the conference room, and I presented my findings. The team was silent at first, studying the data with the focused intensity that scientists bring to moments of real discovery. Then the questions started, a rapid-fire volley of curiosity and excitement. How had I found the anomaly? What had I been looking for? Why hadn't it shown up before? I answered them as best I could, my words tumbling out in a rush of enthusiasm. I'd been so isolated, so guarded, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be part of something bigger than myself. To be part of a team that believed in me. We're going to need to move fast, Dr. Eris said, his voice firm and decisive. This is too important to sit on. We need to start planning clinical trials, secure additional funding, expand the research team. Lucy, you're going to be leading this charge. Are you ready? I looked around the room at the faces of my colleagues. People I'd known for years but had never really let in. People who'd worked alongside me while I was struggling, fighting my private battles, keeping my walls up. And I realized something. They'd never known what I was going through.
None of them.
They'd seen the surface, the hard-working researcher, the quiet graduate student, the woman who kept to herself. They hadn't seen the rest. The fear.
The pain.
The constant exhaustion of fighting against a family that was supposed to love her. I'd been so focused on protecting myself that I'd never let anyone see who I really was. I'd built walls so high and so thick that even I couldn't see over them. I'm ready, I said, and I meant it. Let's do this. The applause that followed was unexpected and overwhelming. My colleagues gathered around me, shaking my hand, clapping me on the shoulder. Dr. Eris was smiling, a rare and genuine smile that lit up his usually reserved face. You've earned this, Lucy, he said. Everything that's coming. You've earned it. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. We started planning the clinical trials, reaching out to potential research partners, applying for grants and funding. The EOS project was no longer just my project. It was a movement, a force of nature that was building momentum faster than any of us could have predicted. But in the midst of all that excitement, there was a shadow. A lingering unease that I couldn't quite shake. I had dinner with my father a week after the meeting. We went to a small, quiet restaurant near campus, the kind of place where no one would notice us or care about our conversation. He was nervous, fidgeting with his menu, his usual composure cracked and uncertain. Thank you for agreeing to do this, he said. I know it's not easy. It's fine, I said. We have to start somewhere. He told me about what had been happening at home. Patricia was still struggling, trying to reconcile the image she'd built of Chloe with the reality of what she'd done. She was going to therapy, reading books on family dynamics, trying to understand how she'd failed both of her daughters. She'd even started volunteering at a local organization that provided academic support to underprivileged students, hoping to give back some of the support she'd failed to give me. She's not the same person she was before, Richard said. She knows she messed up. She knows she hurt you. She wants to make it right. I listened, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me wanted to believe that Patricia could change, that we could still be a family. But another part of me was still too hurt, too angry, too wary to let her in. I'm not ready to see her, I said. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not now. He nodded. I understand.
She understands too.
We're not going to push you. We'll wait as long as it takes. We finished our dinner in a kind of awkward peace. He asked about my work, listened genuinely as I explained the latest developments with EOS. He even asked a few intelligent questions, surprising me with his interests. Your mother used to be a scientist, he said, almost offhandedly. Before she met me. She never told you that. I stared at him.
No.
She never mentioned it. She was working on a research project in her early 20s. Something in biochemistry. She never finished it. She gave it up when she got pregnant with you. The words hit me like a punch. Patricia, the woman who'd always seemed so shallow, so focused on appearances and social standing, had been a scientist. She'd been working on a research project, and she'd given it up for me. Why didn't she ever tell me? I asked. I don't know, Richard said. I think she was ashamed. She felt like she'd given up a part of herself that she was never able to get back. And maybe, when she saw how passionate you were about your work, it was hard for her, because it reminded her of what she'd lost. I sat there, reeling. All those years I'd spent feeling like Patricia didn't understand me, like she was embarrassed by my passion for science. Maybe she'd been seeing a reflection of her own lost dreams. Maybe it wasn't my passion she'd been uncomfortable with. It was the reminder of her own choices. She's proud of you, Lucy, Richard said. She just doesn't know how to show it. Neither of us do. But we're learning. I looked at my father across the table. The man who'd been so absent, so distant, who'd let me feel invisible for years. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Regret. Real, genuine, deep regret. I don't know if I can ever forgive her, I said. Or you. I don't know if I can ever go back to being the person I was before. The person who was so desperate for your approval that she let herself be erased. I wouldn't want you to go back to that person, Richard said. That person was hurting. That person was drowning. I want you to be the person you are now. Strong. Independent. The woman who took back her own life. I didn't have words for that. I just nodded, feeling something loosen in my chest. I went back to the lab that night, unable to sleep. The campus was quiet, the hallways empty. I walked through the familiar rooms, touching the equipment that had become so familiar, feeling the comfort of the space that had been my refuge for so long. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. I'd gotten so many strange messages since the symposium, from journalists and researchers and random people who'd heard my story. But something made me open it. Lucy. It's Chloe. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you something. I got a job at a community college. I'm teaching intro bio to freshmen. It's not glamorous. It's not what I thought I wanted, but it's honest. And I'm starting to think that maybe I can be good at it. I stared at the screen. Chloe, teaching. The girl who'd never shown any interest in science beyond what she could steal from me. The girl who'd faked her way through every conversation, every project, every interaction. Teaching, I wanted you to know. The text continued. I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should know that I'm trying. To be better. To be real. I don't know if I'll ever deserve your forgiveness, but I'm going to try to earn it. I thought about it for a long time. All the years of hurt. All the ways she'd betrayed me. All the wounds that were still healing, that might never fully heal. I typed back. I'm glad you're trying. That's all anyone can do. I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't say I'd ever trust her. But I'd acknowledged her effort. And maybe that was enough for now that the clinical trials were approved. The funding came through. The EOS project was officially, irrevocably, a reality. I stood in the lab on the night of the announcement looking at the framed patent on my wall, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. It wasn't a loud, triumphant peace. It was quiet and steady, like the hum of the centrifuges around me. It was the peace of knowing that I'd survived, that I'd fought, that I'd won. I picked up my phone and called my father. Dad, I said. I'm ready. Tell Patricia I'm ready to see her. The morning I agreed to see Patricia, I woke up with a knot in my stomach so tight I could barely breathe. I'd spent the night tossing and turning, replaying every conversation, every slight, every moment she'd made me feel small. I'd rehearsed what I would say to her, how I would hold my ground, how I would make her understand what she'd done. But as I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair with shaking hands, I realized that none of it mattered. She could say anything she wanted. She could apologize until she ran out of words. And I still wouldn't know if I could trust her. The meeting was at my father's office, neutral ground. I arrived early, wanting to be settled before she got there. The receptionist offered me coffee, which I accepted more out of habit than desire. I sat in the waiting area, staring at the abstract paintings on the walls, trying to calm the frantic beating of my heart. When Patricia walked in, I barely recognized her. She was thinner, her face drawn and pale. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no designer clothes, no careful makeup. She looked like a woman who'd been through something terrible and was still trying to find her way out. "Lucy," she said, her voice soft and uncertain. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." I nodded, not trusting my voice. We sat in the office, my father's desk between us like a barrier. Patricia fidgeted with her hands, looking everywhere but at me. "I don't know where to start," she said finally. "I've been trying to figure out what to say for weeks, and I still don't have the right words." "There are no right words," I said. "There's just the truth." She took a shaky breath. "The truth is, I failed you. I failed you as a mother. I was so focused on making Chloe feel welcome, on trying to blend our families together, that I didn't see what was happening to you. I didn't see that I was pushing you aside. I didn't see that I was letting her take things from you. I was blind, Lucy. Willfully blind." I listened, feeling the anger I'd been carrying for so long pulse beneath my skin. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her how much she'd hurt me, how every dismissive glance, every patronizing comment, every time she'd praised Chloe while ignoring me had carved a wound that was still bleeding. But instead I said, "Why didn't you love me?" The words hung in the air, raw and aching. Patricia's face crumpled, and I saw tears spill down her cheeks. "I did love you," she said, her voice breaking. "I do love you. I didn't know how to show it. I was so afraid of failing as a stepmother, so afraid of making Chloe feel like an outsider, that I overcorrected. I gave her everything, including the attention that should have been yours. I thought I was being fair. I thought I was being kind, but I was just being cruel." I stared at her, feeling the tears burning behind my own eyes. "You made me feel invisible," I said. "You made me feel like I was a problem to be solved, like I was a burden." "I know," she said. "I know I did. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to trust me. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She reached across the desk, her hand hovering near mine. I didn't pull away, but I didn't reach for her either. We sat there in silence, the weight of years of hurt and misunderstanding pressing down on us. "There's something I need to tell you," I said finally. "Dad told me about your research, about the project you gave up." Her face went pale. "He shouldn't have. I didn't want you to know about that." "Why? Because it would make you look human, because it would show me that you were more than just the woman who never understood me." She shook her head. "Because I was ashamed. I was so ashamed of what I'd given up. I'd spent years building that career, and I threw it away because I was scared. Scared of failure. Scared that I wasn't good enough. And when I saw you, so passionate, so determined, so much smarter than I ever was, it hurt. It hurt to see what I could have been. It hurt to see you living the dream I'd let die." I processed her words, feeling something shift inside me. She hadn't been indifferent to my passion. She'd been threatened by it. She'd been reminded of her own failures every time she looked at me. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it explained it. "I'm not going to say I understand," I said, "because I don't. But I can see now that this wasn't just about me. It was about you too. And I'm sorry for that." She looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise. "You're sorry for me. I'm sorry that you had to give up something you loved. I'm sorry that you spent years regretting it. And I'm sorry that you let that regret turn into resentment. But I'm not going to carry that weight for you. That's yours to carry. She nodded slowly. I know. And I will. I've been carrying it for 30 years. I can carry it a little longer. We sat in silence again, the distance between us seeming to shrink, just a little. I don't know if we'll ever have a normal relationship, I said. I don't know if we'll ever be the mother and daughter you wanted us to be. But I'm willing to try. If you are. Patricia reached across the desk and took my hand. For the first time, I didn't pull away. Thank you, she said. Thank you for giving me a chance. The weeks that followed were strange and awkward, like learning to walk again after a long illness. I started having dinner at my parents' house once a week. The first few times were uncomfortable, filled with stilted conversation and long silences. Patricia tried too hard, asking too many questions about my work, complimenting everything I said. Richard was better, more relaxed, but even he seemed uncertain. But slowly, tentatively, we started to find a rhythm. Patricia stopped trying so hard and started just being present. She'd ask about my day, listen without interrupting, and offer genuine advice when I asked for it. She even started visiting the lab, bringing me lunch when she knew I'd been working too long. She didn't understand the science, but she didn't pretend to. She just wanted to be there. One afternoon, she came by with takeout from my favorite Thai place. We ate in the conference room, the papers and files pushed aside to make room for our food. I've been thinking, she said, picking at her pad thai, about what you said, about the choices I made. And I realized that I never really gave myself a chance to be a scientist. I gave it up because I was scared. But that doesn't mean I have to stay scared forever. I looked at her, not sure where she was going with this. I've been looking into some volunteer opportunities, she continued. There's a local program that helps underprivileged kids with science education. They're looking for mentors. People who can guide them, show them what's possible. I thought I might apply. I stared at her. You want to mentor kids in science? I want to do something, she said. Something that matters. I can't go back and be the scientist I was supposed to be. But maybe I can help someone else become the scientist they're meant to be. Maybe I can make sure that no one else gives up on their dreams because they're afraid. I didn't know what to say. It was so unexpected, so far from the woman I'd known my whole life. The woman who'd been so focused on appearances, on social standing, on maintaining the perfect family image. And now she was talking about mentoring underprivileged kids. That's really great, Patricia, I said. I think you'd be good at it. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Thank you. That means a lot. The clinical trials for EOS were moving forward at a rapid pace. We'd secured funding from a major pharmaceutical company, which meant we had the resources to expand our testing significantly. The preliminary results were more promising than I'd dared to hope. The treatment was working. It was actually working. I was in the lab one evening, going over the latest data, when my phone rang. It was Dr. Eris. Lucy, I have some news, he said. The FDA has approved our application for accelerated review. We're going to be able to move to human trials much faster than we anticipated. I felt my heart leap. That's incredible. How soon can we start? We can begin recruiting participants in 2 weeks. We're going to need to work around the clock, but I think we can make it happen. I'm in, I said. Whatever it takes. I hung up and stared at the data on my screen. Years of work, years of fighting, years of being erased and ignored. And now it was all culminating in this. A treatment that could save lives. A cure that could change everything. I called my father first. Then Patricia. Then, almost without thinking, I called Chloe. She answered on the second ring, her voice hesitant. Lucy, is everything okay? Everything's fine, I said. Better than fine. The FDA approved our accelerated review. We're moving to human trials. There was a pause on her end. Then, quietly, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Thank you, I said, meaning it. I know things haven't been easy between us, but I wanted you to know. You were part of this project too, even if it was the worst part. And I thought you deserved to hear it from me. She was silent for a long moment. Thank you, Lucy. That means more than you know. We hung up, and I felt a strange sense of closure. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not reconciliation, but a kind of peace. a recognition that we were both moving forward. In our own ways, the human trials began 6 weeks later. The first participant was a woman named Maria, a 58-year-old retired teacher who'd been diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease we were targeting. She was vibrant and fierce, with a sharp sense of humor and a determination to fight until the very end. "Doc," she said when I introduced myself, "I don't care how many needles you stick in me. I'm not going down without a fight." I smiled. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The trials were grueling. Long hours, endless data analysis, constant monitoring of the participants' conditions. But every time we saw a small improvement, a slight reversal of the disease's progression, I felt a surge of hope that kept me going. Maria responded better than anyone had expected. Within a month, she was showing signs of improvement that even I hadn't dared to hope for. Her speech was clearer. Her motor function was improving. She was regaining control of her body in ways that should have been impossible. The day she walked into my lab without her walker, I almost broke down crying. She was standing there, steady and strong, grinning from ear to ear. "Doc," she said, "I think this thing works." I laughed, tears streaming down my face. "I think it does. I really, truly think it does." The results spread quickly. The medical community was buzzing. The pharmaceutical company was thrilled. And I was suddenly the face of a medical breakthrough that could change the world. I did interviews. I gave presentations. I flew to conferences and received awards. My name was everywhere, in scientific journals, in newspapers, on television. I was no longer the invisible stepsister, the overlooked researcher, the woman who'd been erased. I was Dr. Lucy Chen, the scientist who'd saved lives. But despite all the recognition, all the success, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I'd built my life around work, around revenge, around proving everyone wrong. And now that I'd done all of that, I didn't know what came next. I was in my lab late one night, staring at the framed patent on the wall when I realized what it was. I'd been so focused on getting what I'd been denied that I'd forgotten to ask myself what I actually wanted. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to have a life beyond the lab. I wanted to find a person who saw me, who loved me, who didn't need me to prove anything. I wanted to stop running. That the next day, I called my father and told him I was taking a week off. He was surprised. I'd never taken time off in my entire career, but he was supportive. "You deserve it," he said. "You've done something incredible. Go relax. Have fun. You've earned it." I didn't know where to go. I'd never really traveled, never taken a vacation. My whole life had been work, work, work. But then Patricia called and suggested something that took me completely by surprise. "Come with me," she said. "I'm going to the coast for a few days. A little bed and breakfast I found online. It's quiet, peaceful, just what you need." I hesitated. Patricia and I had been doing better, but we weren't close. We were still figuring out how to be in each other's lives. Spending a week alone with her seemed like a test I wasn't sure I was ready for. "You don't have to decide now," she said. "Just think about it." I thought about it for 2 days. And then I said yes. We drove to the coast in her car, a small convertible she bought after her divorce from Richard. The wind was warm, the sky clear, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt like I could breathe. The bed and breakfast was a charming little place, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was run by a retired couple who seemed to have made it their mission to make every guest feel at home. "I was here a few months ago," Patricia said as we checked in, right after the symposium. "I needed to get away from everything." I looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. She'd been hurting too. She'd been trying to process everything that had happened. And she'd come here to figure out how to move forward. "What did you find here?" I asked. She smiled.
Peace.
And the realization that I couldn't change the past. I could only try to be better. The first few days were awkward. We walked along the beach, ate meals in comfortable silence, watched the sunset from the cliff. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about Chloe. We just existed in the same space, learning to be together. On the third night, we were sitting on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. "Can I ask you something?" Patricia said, "Sure." "When you look back on everything that happened, do you ever wish you'd done things differently?" I thought about it. The years of suffering, The moment of rebirth. The careful planning, the ruthless execution, the satisfying destruction of Chloe's career. I'd thought about it so many times, replaying every moment, wondering if there was a better way. No, I said. I don't. I wish things had been different. I wish I hadn't had to do what I did. But given the situation, I wouldn't change anything. Patricia nodded slowly. I think that's what I was most afraid of. That you'd look back and see nothing but pain. But you don't. You see strength. I see survival, I said. I see a woman who refused to let herself be erased. That's what I see. We sat in silence, the waves crashing below us. And for the first time, I felt like Patricia understood me. Not as her stepdaughter, not as the girl who'd been in her way, but as a person who'd been through hell and come out the other side. I'm proud of you, she said. I know I should have said it years ago. I know I should have been saying it every day. But I'm proud of you, Lucy. You're the strongest person I know. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. The rest of the week passed in a blur of quiet moments and slow healing. We didn't fix everything. We didn't pretend that the past hadn't happened. But we started to build something new. A relationship that wasn't about guilt or obligation, but about choice. She chose to be in my life. And I chose to let her. When we drove back to the city, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because everything was perfect, but because I'd finally let go of something I'd been carrying for so long. The anger, the resentment, the constant, exhausting need to prove myself. I had nothing left to prove. I'd done it. I'd won. Returning to the city after the week at the coast felt like stepping into a different life. The lab was the same. The hum of centrifuges, the glow of monitors, the faint chemical smell that had become as familiar as my own skin. But I was different. Something had shifted inside me during those quiet days by the ocean, and I carried that shift with me like a talisman. The first thing I noticed when I walked into the lab was the flowers. A massive bouquet of white lilies sat on my desk, their fragrance filling the room. I stared at them for a long moment, trying to figure out who would have sent them. The card was simple. Asterisk, congratulations on the FDA approval. You're changing the world. Marcus. Asterisk Marcus. I knew the name. Marcus Webb, a researcher from a competing lab who'd been a friendly acquaintance during my graduate years. We'd exchanged pleasantries at conferences, shared a few late-night conversations in hotel lobbies, but nothing more. I hadn't thought about him in years, so I set the card aside and tried to focus on my work. But the flowers kept drawing my eye, their pristine white petals a stark contrast to the clutter of papers and equipment on my desk. I found myself smiling, despite my best efforts to stay focused. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, hey, Marcus Webb here. Hope the flowers weren't too presumptuous. I saw the news about the FDA approval and wanted to congratulate you properly. Dinner sometime. Asterisk, I stared at the screen, my heart doing something unfamiliar. A flutter, a skip, I wasn't sure. It had been so long since I'd thought about anything outside of work and revenge that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen by someone who wasn't family or colleague. Asterisk, dinner sounds nice. Asterisk, I typed back. Asterisk, when did you have in mind? Asterisk, we agreed on Saturday. A small Italian place near campus that I'd always meant to try, but never had time for. I spent the rest of the week in a state of nervous anticipation, my mind wandering from the data to the dinner and back again. Patricia noticed. You're distracted, she said when she stopped by the lab with lunch on Friday. What's going on? I hesitated. I have a date. Saturday. Her face lit up. A date. Lucy, that's wonderful. Who is he?
Marcus Webb.
He's a researcher. I've known him for years. He reached out after the FDA news. Patricia smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes that I wasn't used to seeing. Well, that's lovely. I'm so happy for you. You deserve to have something in your life besides work. I looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. A year ago, she would have found some way to make me feel foolish for even thinking about dating. But now, she was genuinely happy for me. The change was still hard to believe. Thanks, Patricia. I said. I'll let you know how it goes. Saturday arrived faster than I expected. I spent the afternoon in a state of low-grade panic, trying on outfits, discarding them, trying on more. Patricia had offered to help, which I'd accepted with a mixture of gratitude and discomfort. She had good taste, I had to admit. She helped me choose a simple blue dress that was professional but not severe, comfortable but not sloppy. You look beautiful, she said, stepping back to admire her work. He's going to be speechless. I laughed. I don't know about that. But thank you. The restaurant was exactly as I'd imagined, cozy, intimate, the kind of place where you could actually hear the person across the table. Marcus was already there when I arrived, nursing a glass of red wine and looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. He was a tall man, with kind eyes and a disheveled charm that had always made him approachable. We'd shared a handful of conversations over the years, but I'd never really seen him. Not like this. He was wearing a dark jacket over a crisp white shirt, his hair slightly tousled, a smile on his face that softened his usually serious demeanor. "Lucy," he said, standing as I approached. "You look incredible." I felt a flush creep up my neck. "Thank you. You look nice too." We settled into the evening with surprising ease. The conversation flowed naturally, unforced. We talked about our work, about the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated field, about the frustrations of academia. But we also talked about other things. Marcus told me about his family. His mother was a retired teacher, his father a carpenter. He had 2 younger sisters who were both studying architecture. He was close to them, he said, and missed them now that he lived on the other side of the country. "I don't know how you do it," I said. "Being away from your family." He shrugged. "It's hard. But it's worth it. I'm doing what I love. And my family supports me, even from a distance." I thought about my own family, the fractured relationships, the years of hurt, the slow process of rebuilding. I didn't talk about it. Not yet. But I could feel the weight of it pressing against the words I didn't say. "What about you?" Marcus asked. "Your family, are they close?" I took a sip of wine. "It's complicated. But we're working on it." He nodded, not pressing. Complicated is good. It means there's something worth fighting for. I looked at him across the table, seeing him in a new light. He wasn't just a friendly acquaintance anymore. He was someone who understood, on some level, the struggles I'd been through. Someone who saw me not as a victim or a villain, but as a person. "I'm glad you reached out," I said. I'd forgotten what it was like to talk to someone who wasn't part of the EOS project. He smiled. "I've been meaning to for a while. I just kept putting it off. When I saw the news about the FDA approval, I told myself I couldn't wait any longer." "I'm glad you didn't." The weeks that followed were the happiest I'd felt in years. Marcus and I started seeing each other regularly. Dinners, walks in the park, lazy Sunday afternoons at his apartment, reading side by side. He was patient with my erratic schedule, understanding when I had to cancel plans because of an emergency at the lab. He never complained, never made me feel guilty. One night, after a particularly long day, I came home to find him waiting on my doorstep. He was holding a takeout bag from my favorite Thai place and a bottle of wine. "You look tired today," he said. "I thought you might need this." I stared at him, a lump forming in my throat. No one had ever done something like that for me before. No one had ever noticed when I was tired and done something about it. "You're too good to me," I said. "I'm exactly as good to you as you deserve," he said, kissing me on the forehead. "Which is a lot." We ate on my couch, talking late into the night. I told him about my childhood, about Patricia and Richard, about Chloe. I told him about the years of invisibility, the constant struggle for recognition, the moment of rebirth that had changed everything. "It sounds like you've been through hell," he said. "I have," I admitted. "But I survived. And now I'm here." He took my hand, his fingers warm and steady. "I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're here." But happiness, I was learning, didn't come without its shadows. A month into our relationship, Marcus sat me down with a serious expression that made my stomach drop. "I have to tell you something," he said. "I've been offered a position at a research institute in Europe. It's a huge opportunity, one of the biggest in my field. I've been thinking about it for weeks, and I don't know what to do." I felt the ground shift beneath me. Europe how far, London? It's a 3-year appointment, with the possibility of renewal. 3 years. 3 years of long distance. 3 years of phone calls and video chats and visits that would be too few and far between. That's amazing, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It sounds incredible. It is incredible. But I can't just leave without, he paused, searching for the right words. I can't leave without talking to you first. Because what we have, it matters to me. A lot. I stared at him, my mind racing. A part of me wanted to tell him to go. Wanted to be supportive, selfless, the kind of woman who puts her partner's happiness above her own. But another part of me, the part that had learned to fight for what she wanted, refused to let him go that easily. How much time do you have? I asked. 2 months. They want me to start in the fall. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Then we have 2 months. Let's not spend them worrying about what comes next. Let's spend them being together. He smiled, relief flooding his features. I like that plan. Those 2 months were a gift. We filled them with small moments that would become memories. Late-night walks through the city, spontaneous road trips to nowhere in particular, cooking disasters in his tiny kitchen. We argued about music and agreed on everything else. We learned each other's rhythms, the quiet language of two people falling in love, but the shadow of his departure hung over us, a persistent presence that we couldn't quite ignore. There were nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever see him again. There were mornings when I woke up with tears on my cheeks, the dream of losing him fading into the harsh light of reality. The night before he left, we sat on the roof of his apartment building, watching the stars. I don't want to go, he said. I know it's the right decision for my career, but I don't want to go. Then stay, I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. I felt embarrassed immediately, like I was asking too much.
I'm sorry.
That was unfair. I know you have to, Lucy. He turned to face me, his eyes serious. I don't have to. I choose to. There's a difference. But I'm choosing to go because I think it'll make me a better researcher, a better person, the kind of person who can come back to you and build the life we both deserve. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. What if you find someone else in London, someone who's there, who doesn't live on the other side of the ocean? He shook his head. I won't, because there's no one else for me. There's only you. He kissed me then, and I let myself believe him. I'd spent so long not trusting, not believing, not letting anyone in. But Marcus was different. He'd shown me that I was worth fighting for. And now I had to show him the same. The first few months after Marcus left were the hardest I'd faced since my rebirth. The days were long, the nights longer. The lab was my sanctuary, but it was also a constant reminder of everything I'd sacrificed for my career. I'd spent so long building this life that I'd forgotten to make room for anyone else in it. And now, the one person I'd let in was an ocean away. We talked every day. Video calls in the morning, texts throughout the day, long phone calls before bed. He told me about London, about the rain and the pubs and the research institute that was everything he'd hoped for. I told him about the lab, about the progress of the clinical trials, about the small victories and the setbacks, but it wasn't enough. There were nights when I hung up the phone and stared at the screen, feeling the distance between us like a physical ache. There were mornings when I woke up and reached for him, only to find the other side of the bed empty and cold. I started throwing myself into my work with a ferocity that surprised even me. The clinical trials were entering their final phase, and the results were better than I'd ever dared to hope. The treatment was working. It was actually working. The patients were improving, their quality of life increasing, their symptoms reversing in ways that should have been impossible. Maria, the first participant, had become a close friend. She'd been through the treatment, and she was thriving. She'd gone back to teaching part-time, started volunteering at a local community center. She was living proof that the work I'd done mattered. You've changed my life, Doc, she said one day, her eyes bright. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me, I said. You're the one who did the hard part. You're the one who kept fighting. She shook her head. I just followed your lead. You were the one who gave me something to fight for. The final results of the clinical trials were published in a major medical journal. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone rang off the hook for days. I was invited to speak at conferences around the world. The pharmaceutical company that had funded the research offered me a position as their senior scientific advisor, complete with a salary that made my head spin. But none of it mattered as much as the letter I received from a patient's family. A woman named Sarah, whose mother had been one of the trial participants, wrote me a letter that I read and reread until the paper was soft and worn. Dear Dr. Chin, I don't know if you remember me, but my mother was one of the patients in your trial. Before the treatment, she was barely able to speak. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't remember my name. I thought I was losing her, but today she called me. She said my name. She asked how my day was. She laughed at my stupid joke. It was like getting my mother back from the dead. And I know that's because of you. I don't know how to thank you. I don't think there are words for something like this. But I wanted you to know that what you did matters. It matters more than anything else in the world. Thank you for saving my mother's life. Thank you for giving her back to me with all my heart, Sarah. I sat at my desk, the letter in my hands, tears streaming down my face. This was what I'd been fighting for. This was the thing that made all the years of struggle, all the pain, all the isolation worth it. I hadn't just saved a life. I'd saved a family. I'd given someone back someone they loved. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my desk drawer, next to the framed patent. Then I picked up my phone and called Marcus. Guess what happened today? I said, my voice still thick with tears. I heard, he said. I saw the article. Lucy, this is incredible. I'm so proud of you. I was thinking, I said, about what you said before you left. About coming back. About building the life we both deserve. Do you still mean that? Of course I mean it, he said. I've meant it every day since I left. Then let's talk about what comes next. For us. For our future. He was silent for a moment, and I could hear the smile in his voice when he finally spoke. I'd like that, Lucy. I'd like that very much. The year that followed Marcus's departure was the longest of my life. Not because it was painful, though it was, in its own quiet way, but because it was a year of waiting. Waiting for him to come back. Waiting for the clinical trials to finish. Waiting for the next phase of my life to begin. The EOS treatment was officially approved by the FDA in the spring. The announcement made international news. I was called a hero, a visionary, a woman who had changed the face of modern medicine. I gave press conferences, accepted awards, appeared on the covers of magazines I'd never even heard of. It was everything I'd ever wanted. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about the letter from Sarah. The woman whose mother had been given back to her. That was the thing that mattered. That was the thing that made all the noise bearable. Marcus and I talked every day. The time difference was brutal, 6 hours, which meant our schedules rarely aligned. But we made it work. We had to. I'd learned the hard way that if you wanted something, you had to fight for it. And I wanted him. In the summer, I flew to London for 2 weeks. It was the first time I'd left the country since my undergraduate study abroad, and the first time I'd traveled for pleasure in longer than I could remember. Marcus met me at the airport, and when I saw him waiting in the arrivals hall, I felt the weight of the past year lift off my shoulders. You're here, he said, pulling me into an embrace so tight I could barely breathe. I'm here, I said, laughing through the tears. I'm really here. We spent those 2 weeks exploring the city, walking through Hyde Park, visiting the museums I'd only ever seen on the internet, eating fish and chips in a cozy pub that Marcus swore had the best ones in London. But mostly, we just existed in each other's company. We'd spent so long talking through screens that being together felt like a miracle. I don't want to leave, I said on the last night, lying in his bed with my head on his chest. Then stay, he said, echoing the words I'd said to him a year ago. We'll figure it out. We always do. I lifted my head to look at him. I can't. Not yet. There's too much to do. The EOS project is just getting started. There are follow-up trials to run, new treatments to develop. I can't walk away from that. I know, he said. I'm not asking you to. I just want you to know that there's a place for you here. Whenever you're ready. I kissed him then, pouring all the hope and fear and love I felt into that single gesture. "I'll come back," I said. "I promise." The fall brought a new set of challenges. The EOS treatment was being rolled out to hospitals across the country, and the demand was overwhelming. I spent weeks traveling, training doctors, answering questions, reassuring patients. It was exhausting, but it was also exhilarating. I was making a difference. I was doing something that mattered, but there was also a part of me that felt disconnected from it all. I'd spent so long fighting to get here that I'd forgotten to stop and appreciate it. I was always moving, always planning, always thinking about the next step. I'd become so focused on the destination that I'd lost sight of the journey. It was Patricia who finally pointed it out. "You're not happy," she said one evening, sitting across from me at my kitchen table. We'd started having regular dinners together, just the two of us. It was strange at first, awkward and stilted. But it had become something I looked forward to. "I'm happy," I said. "I have everything I ever wanted. My work is successful. I'm making a difference. How could I not be happy?" She studied me with the sharp, knowing gaze of a woman who'd spent years learning to read people. "You're telling me what you think you should feel, not what you actually feel." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. Because she was right. "I don't know what I feel," I admitted. "I've been so focused on getting here that I didn't think about what it would feel like when I arrived." "Maybe you need to take some time to figure that out," Patricia said. "You've been running for so long, Lucy. You're allowed to rest." I thought about her words long after she'd left.
Rest. It was a foreign concept.
I'd been running since my rebirth, from the moment I'd opened my eyes in my childhood bedroom and realized I had a second chance. I'd been so focused on revenge, on survival, on proving everyone wrong, that I'd never given myself permission to just stop. Maybe Patricia was right. Maybe it was time to stop running. I took a leave of absence from work. 3 months. Dr. Eris was surprised but supportive. "You've earned this, Lucy," he said. "Take all the time you need."
I didn't have any grand plans.
I didn't want to travel or climb a mountain or do anything that would require planning. I just wanted to be still, to exist in the moment, to figure out who I was when I wasn't fighting. I spent the first week doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. I slept until noon, read books that had nothing to do with science, watched trashy reality TV. It felt wrong at first, like I was doing something illegal. But slowly I started to relax. I started to remember what it felt like to not be in a constant state of alert. I started going to yoga classes with Patricia. It was awkward at first. My body was stiff from years of hunching over lab benches, and I had no flexibility at all. But Patricia was patient, encouraging, and slowly, I started to enjoy it. There was something soothing about the rhythm of the movements, the focus on breathing, the quiet stillness of the studio. One evening, after a particularly challenging class, we walked to a nearby coffee shop and sat outside, sipping lattes in the cool autumn air. "I've been meaning to ask you something," Patricia said. "And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Go ahead. Are you still angry at me, at Chloe, at everything that happened?" I considered the question. It was one I'd been asking myself a lot lately. The anger I'd carried for so long had become a familiar weight, a part of me that I wasn't sure I knew how to live without. But lately, it had been fading. Not disappearing entirely, but softening. Becoming something I could set down instead of carrying everywhere. "I'm not as angry as I used to be," I said. "I don't think I'll ever be completely over it. Some things leave scars that never fully heal. But I'm learning to live with them." Patricia nodded, her eyes glistening. "I'm proud of you, Lucy. I know I've said that before, but I mean it. You've come so far. You've done so much. And you've done it all on your own." "I didn't do it all on my own," I said. "I had help. You helped. Richard helped. Even Chloe, in her own twisted way, she helped me figure out what I really wanted." Patricia reached across the table and took my hand. "You're a better person than I am."
You know that, I laughed.
"I don't know about that. But I'm trying." 3 weeks into my leave, I got a call from Marcus. "I'm coming home," he said. "I've been offered a position at a research institute in the city. It's a permanent role. I can come back. For good." I felt my heart stop. "For good, you're not just visiting." "Visiting implies that I'm leaving again," he said. "I'm not leaving again. I'm coming home. To you." I cried then, tears of joy and relief and disbelief. I'd spent so long waiting for something good that I'd forgotten it was possible to actually have it when I managed next week. I've already booked the flight. I'll be there, I said. I'll be there when you land. I met him at the airport. The same terminal where I'd flown to London months ago, but this time it was different. This time, he was coming home. He walked through the arrivals gate, and I felt the world tilt on its axis. He was the same man I'd said goodbye to a year ago, but he was also different. More confident. More at ease. The distance had been hard, but it had also given us both room to grow. He saw me and broke into a grin. Then he was running, crossing the distance between us in a matter of seconds. I told you I'd come back, he said, pulling me into his arms. You did, I said, laughing through the tears. You kept your promise. The next few months were a blur of settling in. Marcus found an apartment not far from mine. We spent weekends shopping for furniture, painting walls, making the space our own. It was domestic and ordinary, and exactly what I'd always wanted. That I went back to work, but it was different this time. I'd learned to set boundaries. To say no. To prioritize the things that actually mattered. I still worked hard. I would always work hard, but I'd stopped letting work consume me. Patricia and I had dinner every Tuesday. Richard joined us when he could. We were not a normal family. We would never be a normal family. But we were becoming something. Something new, something fragile, something worth protecting. Chloe sent me an email. It was long and heartfelt, full of things she'd been too afraid to say to my face. She was still teaching at the community college, and she loved it. She'd found a purpose, a way to make a difference without stealing from anyone. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't expect it. She just wanted me to know that she was trying. I read the email 3 times, then I typed my reply. Chloe, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for what you did. But I'm glad you're finding your way. I'm glad you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. I wish you well. Lucy. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a start. And maybe, in time, that would be enough. The final phase of the EOS project was dedicated to making the treatment accessible to everyone who needed it. We worked with pharmaceutical companies to lower the cost, partnered with nonprofits to distribute it to underserved communities, and campaigned for government funding to ensure that no one would be denied the treatment because of their income. The day the first free clinic opened, I stood in the back of the room and watched patients arrive. People from every walk of life, every age, every background. They were scared and hopeful and grateful. And I knew in that moment that everything I'd been through had led to this. Not the awards. Not the recognition. Not the revenge I'd carried out on Chloe. This. The simple, profound act of helping people. The thing that had always been at the heart of everything I'd done. Maria was there volunteering at the clinic. She was radiant, healthy, full of life. She caught my eye and I waved back, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. Doc, she said, walking over to me. You did it. You really did it. We did it, I said. I couldn't have done it without you. She shook her head. I just showed up. You were the one who made it happen. You and your stubbornness and your refusal to give up. I laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. The clinic became a success. Within months, we'd opened 10 more locations across the state. The EOS treatment was changing lives, saving lives, giving people back the futures they'd been told were lost. Marcus proposed to me on a quiet Sunday evening. We were sitting on the roof of his apartment, watching the sun set over the city, when he pulled out a small velvet box. I've been carrying this for 6 months, he said, his voice unsteady. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the right words. And I realized that there's no right moment, and there are no right words. There's just you. And me. And the fact that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. He opened the box. Inside was a simple diamond ring, elegant and understated, exactly the kind of thing I would have chosen for myself. Lucy Chun, he said, will you marry me? I stared at the ring, then at him. The man who'd seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. The man who'd crossed an ocean to be with me. The man who made me believe that I deserved to be happy. Yes, I said, tears streaming down my face. Yes, I'll marry you. He put the ring on my finger, and I looked at it sparkling in the fading light. It was real. This was real. I'd spent so long living in the past that I'd forgotten how beautiful the present could be. The wedding was small and intimate. Just family and close friends. Patricia cried through the entire ceremony. Richard gave a speech that was surprisingly touching. Even Chloe showed up, standing in the back, keeping her distance. She didn't approach me, but she smiled when our eyes met, and I smiled back. Marcus looked at me as I walked down the aisle, his eyes brimming with tears. And I felt, for the first time in my life, truly seen. Not as a victim or a fighter or a conqueror. Just as myself. Lucy Chen. The woman who had survived. The woman who had won. Looking back on it all, the years of invisibility, the betrayal, the careful planning, the sweet taste of revenge, I don't regret any of it. Not because I'm proud of everything I did, but because every choice, every mistake, every moment of pain and triumph led me here. To this moment, to this life that I still carry the scars. Some days, the old anger flickers back to life, a ghost that hasn't quite been laid to rest. But I've learned to live with it. I've learned to let it go. The framed patent still hangs on my wall, a reminder of what I accomplished. The letter from Sarah sits in my desk drawer, a reminder of why I did it. And the ring on my finger, a reminder of the future I'm building, one moment at a time. I walked out of the clinic that evening, my hand in Marcus's, the city lights twinkling around us. The air was cool and clean, the stars beginning to emerge overhead. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked. I smiled. "The future. Everything that's still to come." "That's a lot of thinking," he said. "It is," I agreed. "But I've got time. For the first time in my life, I've got all the time in the world." We walked through the quiet streets, our footsteps echoing off the buildings. And I thought about everything that had happened. The family I'd found. The family I'd rebuilt. The woman I'd become. It had taken me 2 lifetimes to get here. But I was finally home.